In last session we have seen about writing dynamic XPath by using OR and operators. We have also seen a problem statement where after clicking this button, video start button, we have seen the example where once you click this video start button, its ID changed to video underscore stop. So for the same element, if you use the XPath like this, it used to fail, right? So in such situation we can use dynamic XPath. So by using OR operation for this problem statement, how we can write it? So we can write it like this. We can write it like two forward slashes, let's say star. We can use OR condition like this. So we can simply use @ ID equals to, what is the ID here? So initially before clicking, ID is video start. After clicking for same element, ID becomes video underscore stop. So by using OR operation, what we can do? What we will do, we will simply use @ ID equals to video underscore start, and then we can use OR condition, and we can use again @ ID equals to video underscore stop. So in first time when we will use this XPath expression, ID of that button is video start, and in next time it will become video stop. So in both of the condition, if you see for same element, any one of the condition will be always matching. That's why this XPath will never fail. If you use this XPath, it will work for both the conditions. If any one of the condition gets matched, it will find out this button. That's why it will always work. That is the benefit of using OR operator in dynamic XPath. So out of these two conditions, if any one condition is matching, then it will be able to find this XPath. So that's about OR. We have also seen AND operator, and we will now see XPath functions in Selenium. Sometimes while working in a dynamic web environment, it becomes challenging to locate a particular web element by using general attributes such as name, class, etc. And while using XPath, several different elements may have similar properties. For example, similar names or class names. Even the simple XPath strategies we discussed in the previous chapters will not be very efficient, because in such cases, simple XPath may return more than one element. To overcome such scenarios, XPath in Selenium offers XPath functions that can write effective XPath to identify elements very quickly or uniquely. We will see what XPath function provides in Selenium, which help us to find elements very uniquely. So there are contains functions. One of the function is contains function, which we can use in the XPath. XPath contains is one of the methods used while creating an XPath expression. We can use if part of the value, we can use it if part of the value of any attribute changes dynamically. It can identify any attribute by using the partial value. So contains function can be used to identify any attribute by its partial value as well. The syntax for using the XPath contains method is /, after that we can use tag name or we can use star as well. Then we have to use contains, which will take two parameters. First one is @attribute of the tag which needs to be validated for locating the web element, and second parameter is partial value of that attribute which the attribute should contain. This approach becomes very handy when the attribute of the web element change at runtime by keeping some part of the attribute static. So for those elements which change dynamically but some of the part remains static, in such situation this contains function is very handy. Now by using contains function, if you see the example here, for this username field, by using partial value, how we can use contains function here. So two forward slashes, tag name input, within the bracket, square bracket, we can use contains function, attribute name @placeholder, and instead of the entire value of username, if you use the contains method, we can simply use partial value, that is USERN, that is the partial value for that placeholder attribute. Then also it will be able to find this username field. Here we have one placeholder attribute with value as username, but instead of using the complete value username, we can use a part of the value and use it with contains to identify the element. Here we have used user n as partial value. We can use any part of the attribute value that seems to be appropriate. So even if you use user, it will also find that element. If you simply use name, NAME, then also it will be able to find that element by using this contains method. If you use like ERNAME, then also it will be able to find out that element correctly. I will show you practically as well. So now let's go to PyCharm. I will just write it XPATH using contains method. So I will just, this time we will just find out one element, that is username element. So I'm just copying this part of code, commenting this part of the code, and let's find out driver dot find element by dot XPath. Then we have to use, or we have to provide value. So I'm just going to Chrome. We have to find the value for username field by using contains function. So Control F and we can search it here. So I'm just writing the XPath now. 2/s. For username, what is the tag name? That is input. In square bracket we can use, first we can use contains method, contains, which will take two parameters. Within round brackets we will write @attribute. What is the attribute we are using? Let's say I will use placeholder, @placeholder equals to, not equals to, we have to use comma. Second parameter is partial value. We can use partial value. So instead of this username, I can simply use, let's say USER. Then also it will be able to find this element. If I use simply name, let's say NAME, then also it is able to find that username. If I simply use, let's say SERN, then also it will be able to find out that element, because it is taking partial value. We can use the partial value. So I will just copy this value and let's use it in our script. So I am just passing this value here, by.xpath, and I am passing this value here, in which we have to pass some value. So I will just use .send keys and we can pass this any string value here, username value. Let's execute this program. So I'm just running this file. It will launch the Chrome browser. And it is passing the string which we have passed there, right? So this is working correctly. That means we have used contains method with these two parameters, that is @placeholder, that is the attribute, and we have taken the partial value of this username. Instead of using the entire username as a value, we have taken the partial value. So if I put simply name here, then also it should work. So instead of SERN, if I put name, or even if I put just NAM, then also it should work. Let's execute. Right, it is passing our string. So this is the benefit of using contains function, with which we can use partial value of any attribute and it should able to find that element on our web page. That is the benefit of using contains function. Now next one is starts with function. So starts with function is similar to contains function, but only difference is we can use only starting value, only the starting string. In contents we can use any partial value, any part of the attribute value, which can be a starting from the middle as well, right? But with the starts with function, it helps to find the element which has attribute value starting with the specific given character or sequence of character. It should always start with starting value. It is quite useful while dealing with dynamic web pages where element that has an attribute value that keeps on changing with every page load or page operation. Usually, these dynamic elements have few common starting character followed by random dynamic text. Apart from this dynamic attribute, this can also identify static elements as well. So syntax is again / tag name starts with, which will accept two parameters, starts with function accept attribute of the attribute name as the first parameter and part of attribute value, but that should be a starting part of that attribute value, right? Now if you see the example, for this example, if you see again for username field, input starts with function @placeholder comma, and this time we have to use the starting value. I can use USERN, I can use USER, or I can simply use USE as well, but it has to start from the U because it is starts with function. So here we have used the placeholder attribute to identify the username field. So the actual placeholder value of this element is username, but with starts with function we can use starting few characters to recognize the element. So if I go to Chrome and let's create the XPath by using starts with. So here instead of contents I will simply use starts -with function @placeholder. So if you see here I have to use USER, then it is able to find that element. If I simply put use, then also it will be find element. But here if I use end part of that value, let's say name, it will not be able to find, right? So that is the difference between contents and starts with. In contents we can use any partial value from that value, but for starts with function we have to start it with starting value, that is username. U should be at start, so user, it will be able to find that element. So I'm just copying this value. So let's find out for password now. So let's find out for password. So I'm just highlighting this password field. Let's highlight the password field. So this is the HTML code. I will just write XPath. Input is a tag name. I can use starts with function, starts -with. We should take two parameters. First one is @attribute. Let's use some another attribute. Let's use ID attribute this time. @ID comma, we have to provide partial value. So user -name. So if I simply use user, I can simply use user, then also it should be able to find that element, right? So it is highlighting that element. I'm just copying this value and let's use it in our field script. So let's use that value in our script. So here we have passing value to username field. I will use driver dot find element by dot XPath and pass that value here. Let's pass that value in this dot send keys and let's pass some random value as a password. Now let's execute this script. So it is launching the browser, and after that it is passing. So it is passing in our username only, right? So something is wrong. So let's check it out. So we have used starts with @ID, but here if you see we have used user only, right? So it should not be user, it should be password. So let's check out the value for password field one more time. So this is the highlighted part, right? So ID should be password. We have used user here. So for password it should be pass. So if I push pass as a value, then also it should be able to find out, right? So I'm just copying this value. So for the we are finding it for password field, right? So I'm just passing this here @ID, and then we are passing the value here. Now let's execute this file. Something went wrong, some error must be in syntax. So let's check it out one more time. Driver.findElement by.xpath, and then we have to pass value. So we have 2 times copied it, right? So let's remove completely. Let's paste it here. So now it should work correctly. Now let's execute this file. It is launching the browser and it is passing username value and password correctly. So this is how we can use starts with function.